There are many reasons why you might not be able to download new applications to analyze your data. Using programs like SAS, Data, SPSS can be very expensive. Even Microsoft Office can be very expensive. Regardless, using the Windows PowerShell command line is an often overlooked tool for a lot of tasks, and it can be quite powerful. In today's video, I'm going to demonstrate how to run some basic analyses using PowerShell, and it's really not that bad. I think you'll find it pretty easy, actually. So with that, let's just get right into it. All right, why don't we look at our data set here? I have a CSV, and you can either open this with Excel, or you can actually just use a text editor too if you don't have Microsoft Office. It's just going to look like this because it's the CSV. You can see the commas right there. But just for visualization's sake, why don't I just open this in Excel? You can have a look at it. Okay, so I have name, I have age, and I have race. Just a very simple data set. And we're going to analyze this with PowerShell. I'm going to go ahead and close this here. And there's a couple ways to make PowerShell files. First thing you can do is just open a new blank text file. Okay, this is whatever you want to call it. Call it analyze, okay? And you want to go ahead and open it. Now we can start writing our code. To keep this under 10 minutes, I'm going to try to move through each section pretty quickly. I'm going to put my code on GitHub though, so if you want a little extra detail, definitely check the link in the video description. First thing we want to do is just reference our CSV file there. So pretty straightforward. We're just going to define this path and change it to your own. This is where my CSV file is. But next thing we want to do is we actually want to import the CSV file. You're going to see a lot of these $ in PowerShell. You can see here with CSV file path and data, and they typically refer to data points or variables that you've created or are referencing. All right, now that we have all of our CSV data right here in this variable data, let's go ahead and analyze some of this data. Okay, so we're going to create a couple new variables here. We have ages, we have the mean age, we have variance, and we have the standard deviation of the age. So going right here, we're going to look at this data from the CSV right there. Okay, and then right here, the for each object here, this is going to iterate over each object in data right here. Okay. In our script block right here, this right here represents the current object being processed. So we're going to convert this age property of each object to an integer. All right. So that's what's going on right there. So we want to make sure these are numbers. All right. So we're getting the mean right here. And this measure object right here, this calculates the mean or average age. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple there. Okay. And we're looking at the variance right here. I don't know if we're going to output this, but I do need this for the standard deviation. So the for each object, this right here, this is going to iterate over the age, and it calculates the square difference from the mean, and then it sums these differences. That's what's all going on right here. And then, yeah, we have the standard deviation right here, and we're looking at the square root of the variance, and that's calculated using that math, this part right here, and then the square root thing going on right there. So that's how that works. A lot of difficult looking syntax, but like I said, you start to get used to it. All right, let's start looking at the range of our data. Okay. So as you might have guessed here, we're sorting this ages variable. So we got those ages, that's a reference right there. Okay. That one's pretty simple. Now we're getting the range right here, okay? So what we're doing is we're subtracting the youngest age from the oldest age, and that's going to give us the range. Pretty simple. All right, now we're going to get the distribution of counts for race. So we're going to be able to count each type of racial characteristics. So we'll have, like, for example, white or Asian, Hawaiian Pacific Islander, and so on. Now we'll be able to count that. And so the group right here, that's going to group it so we can count those, all right? And that selects the name and the count. So that's going to show up when we print this out. And it's going to sort these counts in descending order. Okay, you can see that specified right there, all right? So we're going to sort that. Okay, now let's look at how we get the oldest and youngest person with their age. So we have the youngest here and the oldest here. And you can see my variable names right there. And their name is going to be specified right there, along with their age once we output it. For simplicity, I set this up to find the oldest and youngest ages, but only show one example of a name for each. In my dataset's case, I don't have a tie for the highest and lowest value, so it's totally fine. However, let's say your highest age value is 80 and your lowest is 20, and you have two people who are 80 and you have two people who are 20. That's a bit more complicated, but don't worry, I got you covered. Check the GitHub page that I made under the optional section if you want to list all the people who are the oldest age and all the people who are the youngest age. I want to just keep this simple though, but definitely have an option for you if that's what you want to do. Okay, now we can start outputting our results. So now let's write our output. The first part's going to be blank, just so there's a little bit of a space. And the next part here, in fact, might be easier to just paste and copy this a few times. So put that there, get our mean age, okay? So we're referencing this right here. All right, let's get our standard deviation now. And if you want to just do it like this, you can do that as well. But I do need to copy this again. Get our range. And again, just do that. And just throw it in there. Now again, we want to add in the write output command, and we can just paste that in there. Now here, this is what we want to do for a line break here. So a new line. Okay, so we're going to break down the race distribution. All right, that's where that grouping from earlier comes in. We can actually just do this again, just copy. All right, we're going to go through each of those. So we can see for each object, write the output. And this is really easy to mess up. So if you do, don't freak out. It's okay. Okay, let's do our write output. Gonna maybe just go like this and reuse it. Okay, again, we have the backtick and N for the new line, and we have the oldest person. And we can just do this and change everything to youngest. Can you spot the error that I just made here? It's a pretty minor one, and we'll come back to it, don't worry. Most of the time, I would try to edit this kind of stuff out, but I want you to see that those of us that have been programming a long time, we still make mistakes all the time too. We're all human, so don't feel discouraged regardless of your skill level. Now, depending on how you run this, I like to have a command where you hit enter to close it, so that way you can keep your results on the screen and it doesn't just run and go off the screen. I just think it's better that way. You can do however you want. Right, and I'll just do this last part here. So this basically waits for user input and does not close the script until somebody hits enter. So that's basically how that works. That's what's really going on right there. All right, you might have noticed there are a few incorrect things here, a few errors, and I want you to see how sensitive PowerShell can be, but also what it looks like when you have an error. So this right here, this should be capital L. Like I said, very sensitive. This should actually be age. The code will still work. It'll just output a little bit weird, but we should fix it. And this right here, this should be a $sign, but I'm not going to fix that because I want you to see what an error looks like. So what we want to do is when we're done with our code in our text editor, just go to File, Save As. I'm going to go to all files here. I want to save it as a .ps1 file. Okay. Now it's a PowerShell file. All right. So now we right click, run with PowerShell. You're going to get this real quick like that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and change the incorrect $sign to a $sign, and then we can save our change. Let's go ahead and see what happens. And if we did everything that we needed, it should output all of our data. Again, we want to right click and make sure we open with PowerShell. Aha, now it works. See? Now it's going to stay open until we hit enter to close. When I'm not doing tutorials, I prefer to use Visual Studio Code for PowerShell and many other languages too. A nice part about Visual Studio is your output appears at the bottom, and even if you have an error, the error will appear down there as opposed to what I showed you before. And I actually had to freeze that before so you could even see the error. I highly recommend it if you code a lot or you want to get into coding. We've shown that PowerShell can be used to analyze data, but you can also do things like make data collection forms, as you can see here. Possibilities are endless with PowerShell. All right, that should about do it for this video. Let me know what you thought and if you'd like to see more videos with PowerShell and data in the future. In the meantime, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch y'all later.